Have you ever loved someone so deeply that your heart raced just thinking about them, yet somehow in a moment of vulnerability you said something that changed everything? It happens more than we admit, not because we mean to hurt, but because emotions blur the line between truth and timing. In love, we often believe that saying everything we feel is the purest form of honesty, that if our heart is open, we should lay it all out, no matter how raw or real. But here's the hidden truth. Some words, once spoken, do not create closeness. They create distance. Not because they're false, but because they strike the wrong chord in a heart trying to feel safe. A relationship isn't just built on what we share. It's also built on what we protect. And sometimes silence is not avoidance. It's wisdom. It's restraint. It's love that understands timing is just as sacred as truth. You see, women are often taught to communicate openly, to express, to unpack pain and joy in the same breath. But what no one tells you is that when it comes to men, especially those you love, some truths are better whispered to yourself until the right moment arrives, or never spoken at all. Why? Because men are wired differently. They carry burdens in silence, measure their worth and how they're perceived, and tie their identity tightly to how they're made to feel by the woman they love most. Your words, especially in emotional moments, can either water his confidence or drain it. They can anchor the relationship or leave cracks that never truly heal. This doesn't mean you should suppress yourself. It means you should be aware of your power, because you are powerful. The way you speak, the way you respond, the way you choose silence when the world demands noise, that's a strength most never master. Love, no matter how passionate or pure, is fragile when laced with careless expression. And the irony is, we don't usually say damaging things when we're calm. We say them when we're scared, when we feel ignored, disrespected, or misunderstood. But in those moments, the words that rise from our mouths often reflect pain, not truth, emotion, not wisdom. How many relationships have ended not because love disappeared, but because unfiltered words destroyed the safety that love needed to survive? That's why what you choose not to say matters just as much as what you do say. Restraint doesn't mean hiding. It means leading with clarity, not chaos. It means protecting what you're building, not pouring gasoline on it just to feel heard. There is a silent kind of power in a woman who knows when to speak and when to hold back. A power that doesn't seek to win the argument, but to preserve the connection. A power that doesn't shout to be validated, but chooses calm to stay connected. You might love him with everything you have. You might want to share every emotion, every thought, every hurt. But love without wisdom turns emotional honesty into emotional chaos. And no man, no matter how strong, wants to feel emotionally unsafe in the arms of the one he trusts most. That's what this is about. Not censorship, but consciousness. Not silence, but smart timing. Not fear, but understanding. And if you stay with me till the end of this journey, you'll learn the 5 things that every wise woman guards with grace. Because when you know what not to say, you stop playing defense in your relationship. You start leading it from a place of depth, awareness, and lasting strength. The most secure relationships aren't built on constant sharing. They're built on intentional communication, on choosing peace over pride, on recognizing that love isn't always about letting everything out. It's about letting the right things out at the right time, in the right way, for the right reason. So if your goal is to love a man deeply and be loved deeply in return, don't just focus on what you give. Pay attention to what you protect, because silence, when chosen with wisdom, doesn't weaken love. It deepens it. It makes it sacred. And sometimes the most powerful thing you'll ever say is nothing at all. Sometimes the most damaging words are the ones we say to prove we don't need anyone, not because we actually don't, but because we're afraid to show that we do. When a woman tells a man, "I don't need you," what she's really saying is, "I'm scared to rely on you." It's self-protection disguised as strength. It's a shield thrown up to avoid the pain of disappointment. But to the man who hears it, it cuts far deeper than you may ever realize. Men are not drawn to neediness, but they are driven by purpose. And nothing activates a man's sense of purpose more than knowing he matters to the woman he loves. When you tell him you don't need him, even in passing, even in jest, it doesn't sound empowered. It sounds like rejection. It doesn't sound confident. It sounds cold. It doesn't show him that you're strong. It shows him that he's dispensable. And in a world that already demands he stay stoic, emotionless, and tough, the last thing he needs is to feel unnecessary in the one place he hoped to find softness. You may think you're keeping your dignity by proving your independence, but love isn't about proving. It's about connecting. You can be strong without silencing his value. You can be whole and still make room for his presence. There is a difference between needing someone and being needy. Needing someone is human. It means they play a role in your joy, in your support system, in your peace. Being needy is when you depend on them to fix the holes you refuse to heal. Don't confuse the two. Needing a man isn't weakness. It's an invitation into your world. It says, there's space here for you. It says, I trust you to show up. It says, you matter. When you take that space away, you don't create safety, you create suspicion. He starts to question whether he belongs, whether he has a place beside you or just around you. And when a man doesn't feel needed, he doesn't stay emotionally invested. He might remain physically close, but his heart will start to withdraw. Not because he doesn't love you, but because he no longer feels like he's part of the story you're writing. Every time you remind a man that you don't need him, you're slowly erasing the space he thought he held in your life. And over time, that message adds up, until one day he stops trying, he stops offering, he stops giving. Not because he stopped caring, but because he believed you. You told him you didn't need him, and he listened. Here's the truth that often gets ignored. Being vulnerable enough to need someone is a sign of immense strength. It takes courage to say, I could do this on my own, but I'd rather do it with you. That's not weakness. That's emotional maturity. That's partnership. That's connection at its highest level. If you want to keep a man close, don't push him away with false strength. Pull him closer with real openness. Let him feel that his presence adds to your life, that you're already whole, but having him makes the picture even more complete. That's the kind of love men stay for. That's the kind of bond that deepens over time. And if you're afraid that needing someone gives them power over you, remember this. Real power isn't in withholding love. It's in offering it wisely. Real control isn't in pretending you're fine alone. It's in choosing to be together without losing yourself. A powerful woman doesn't fear vulnerability. She controls how, when, and with whom she expresses it. Don't let your fear of being let down stop you from letting love in. The walls you build to keep hurt out are the same walls that keep connection away. You don't need to shout your independence to be respected. Your energy speaks for itself. Your boundaries speak for themselves. Your presence speaks louder than any declaration of detachment. Let love be a choice, not a defense. Let your words reflect openness, not armor. Let your heart remain soft, not guarded behind unnecessary declarations of solitude. Because the moment you allow someone to truly show up for you, not out of obligation, but because they want to, you unlock a deeper, richer kind of love. And that kind of love doesn't ask you to give up your strength. It celebrates it. It holds space for it. It adds to it. All you have to do is stop pushing away the very thing your heart secretly craves. When you stop pretending you don't need him, you give him permission to rise, to lead, to love, to stay. That's not weakness. That's the kind of power most people will never understand. When a man finally steps into a relationship with his heart open, he's not just looking for love, he's searching for peace. A place where he doesn't have to prove himself. A place where he's not measured against ghosts from the past. That's why one of the most damaging things a woman can ever say is, you're not like other men. On the surface, it sounds like praise. It sounds like a compliment wrapped in affection. But underneath, it's a quiet trap. A comparison he never asked to be a part of. What he hears isn't, you're special. What he hears is, other men have failed me, and now it's your turn not to. He begins to feel like he's in a silent competition against someone you no longer love yet still talk about. The pressure to not disappoint, the unspoken demand to always be better, and the fear that one slip up will make him just like those other men you constantly use as a reference point. No man wants to be loved on the condition that he performs better than your past. He wants to be seen for who he is, not who he isn't. He wants to be loved for his uniqueness, not praised for being the opposite of your ex. And deep down, when you place him on a pedestal by comparison, it doesn't feel like admiration. It feels like pressure. The pressure to always be good enough. The fear of falling from grace the moment he makes a mistake. Relationships aren't built on comparisons. They're built on connection. On seeing someone clearly without looking through the lens of history. And the truth is, when you say, you're not like other men, you're not just criticizing those men, you're reinforcing that your heart still carries their shadows. Whether it's bitterness, pain, or unresolved disappointment, you're letting your past set the tone for your present. Healing doesn't mean dragging your past into every conversation. It means giving your new connection a chance to grow in fresh soil, not ground that's already been dug up by memory. A man doesn't need to hear how badly others failed you. He needs to feel that you believe in his goodness, not because he's different from them, but because of who he is on his own. If you want to truly uplift a man, be specific with your appreciation. Don't say, "You're not like other men." Say, "I value how you listen when I speak." Say, "Your consistency makes me feel safe." Praise him for his effort, his presence, his actions, not his distance from someone who hurt you. That kind of affirmation strengthens him. It doesn't pressure him. It allows him to grow freely in love, not constantly watch his steps to avoid being categorized. And on the other side of this is something even more powerful, your ability to let go of comparison within yourself. Because if you constantly compare him, chances are you're also comparing yourself to his past, to his expectations, to other women. That kind of mindset never breeds peace. It breeds performance. It turns love into a stage instead of a sanctuary. Let your relationship be a clean page. Don't write today's story with yesterday's ink. Don't measure your current connection with rulers shaped by pain, because when you do that, you're not giving him a fair chance. You're testing him against a standard built on heartbreak, not healing. Men want to rise when they feel safe, when they feel accepted without condition, when they know they're not being constantly evaluated through the filter of someone else's failures. They don't need to be better than someone else to be worthy of your love. They just need to be real, consistent, or growing. And if they're showing up, trying, and being present, that alone is rare enough to cherish. So release the habit of comparison. Stop using your past as a mirror and start seeing the man in front of you as he truly is. Not through the cracks of old memories, but through the clarity of a heart that has healed. He's not your ex. He's not the man who betrayed you. He's not the disappointment that broke your spirit. And if you treat him like he is, you'll lose something beautiful before it ever has a chance to flourish. Speak life into what's in front of you. Celebrate who he is, not who he's not. That subtle shift will change everything. It will make him feel safe enough to open up, confident enough to grow, and secure enough to stay. Because in the end, love is not about finding someone who's better than the last. It's about finding someone who's right for you and giving them the space to love you without the burden of someone else's mistakes. And that kind of love, it's not just powerful, it's unshakable. There's a kind of wound that doesn't bleed but lingers beneath the surface. A wound caused not by betrayal, but by comparison to someone who no longer exists in your life, but somehow still lives in your words. Every time you say, "My ex used to," you're not just referencing your past, you're inviting it into the present. You're pulling it into a space that's meant to be sacred and fresh. And whether you realize it or not, that small phrase is slowly poisoning the trust you're trying to build. It might seem harmless. Maybe you're just sharing a story, offering a contrast, or trying to express your needs. But to a man, those words can feel like quiet judgment. Like he's being measured against someone who already failed you. Like he's being asked to compete with a memory that has no room for growth or defense. You're not just telling him what your ex did, you're telling him what you expect. You're telling him what you miss. And even if that's not your intention, the message lands the same. You're not doing enough. You're not getting it right. Someone else did this better. And for a man who's trying to earn your trust, those words aren't motivating, they're deflating. They don't encourage him to step up. They make him question whether his efforts are even worth it, whether you're truly ready to move forward or still stuck in a loop of comparison that no one can win. Your past matters, but only if it teaches, not torments. If it becomes a lesson that brings wisdom, not a weapon that brings wounds. Relationships are hard enough when you're only dealing with two hearts. Add a third, one that's no longer physically present but emotionally active, and you create a triangle that no love can sustain. A man wants to feel chosen, not by default, not in comparison, but with clarity. He wants to feel like he is enough for your future, without constantly being haunted by your past. And he doesn't want to be the therapist for your unhealed wounds. He wants to be your partner, not your emotional dumping ground. When you talk about your ex's failures, you're not warning him. You're telling him what you still carry. And when you talk about your ex's good qualities, you're not sharing. You're placing unspoken expectations that he didn't agree to fulfill. Both create a silent pressure that makes emotional safety impossible. Emotional safety is the soil in which real love grows. And nothing suffocates that soil faster than constantly digging up the roots of old pain. If your past still needs healing, that's okay. But don't bring it into a space that needs nurturing. Don't use your current relationship as a stage to process your old one. Do that work on your own, or with someone who can help you release it. Because if you don't, you'll keep sabotaging every opportunity for new love with the weight of old hurt. It takes real strength to let go. To accept that some things happened, some people changed you, and some memories still sting. But they no longer deserve a voice in your present. You don't owe your past any more attention than it's already taken from you. But you owe your future everything. So choose your words with intention. Speak from a place of hope, not history. Let your new love breathe without holding it hostage to your last heartbreak. You don't have to pretend your past didn't happen. You just have to decide that it no longer gets to decide who you are or how you love. Give the man in front of you the gift of a blank page. Let him write a new story with you, not fill in the gaps of a story someone else abandoned. See him for who he is, not who you wish someone else had been. Because the moment you do that, something powerful happens. He feels safe. He feels respected. He feels seen. And when a man feels those things, he starts to pour into you with a different kind of love. One that's not born from obligation, but from inspiration. One that says, I want to be here, not because I'm better than someone else, but because you made space for me to be fully myself. That's how healing begins. Not through perfect love, but through present love. Through intentional silence where comparison wants to speak. Through mindful affirmation where memory tries to linger. Through strength that chooses peace over proving a point. You don't have to mention your ex to explain what you need. You don't have to bring up the past to build the future. Just be clear, be kind, be present. Let your love today be louder than the echoes of yesterday, because the man who's willing to love you now shouldn't have to fight the ghosts you've already outgrown. He should be met with your truth, your trust, and your willingness to give him a chance, free of shadows, free of comparisons, and full of possibility. Not every wound is visible. Some are carved into the identity of a man long before you meet him, shaped by childhood, fatherhood, failure, and fear. And when you say you're just like your father, you may think you're pointing out a habit, an attitude, or a flaw. But what he hears is something much deeper. He hears shame. He hears disappointment. He hears a lifelong fear being confirmed with your voice. Because every man carries a story he doesn't always speak of. And for many, the relationship with their father is one of the most complicated, unspoken struggles of all. Maybe his father was absent. Maybe he was abusive. Maybe he never showed love. Or maybe he was there physically but completely disconnected emotionally. Whatever the case, if you use his father as a comparison during conflict, you're not just hurting his ego, you're wounding his soul. You're telling him that he's becoming the very thing he swore he'd never be. And that kind of message doesn't push him to improve, it shuts him down. It makes him feel like no matter how hard he tries, he'll never outrun the shadow of the man who shaped his pain. And the truth is, you might not even mean it with malice. You might say it in the heat of the moment, trying to make a point. But those words stick. They don't fade with apologies. They echo in silence, growing heavier every time he fails, every time he falls short, every time he questions himself. Men don't always verbalize pain the way women do. They internalize it. They convert it into silence, withdrawal, or anger. And when they feel judged, especially by the woman they love, they retreat. Not because they don't care, but because they don't feel safe. A man's ability to love is tied to how safe he feels emotionally. And when you use the deepest parts of his past against him, you strip that safety away. This doesn't mean you should tolerate bad behavior or silence your own pain, but it does mean you must choose your words with wisdom, especially in conflict. If something is hurting you, name the action, not the identity. Speak to the moment, not his bloodline. Say, this behavior hurts me instead of, you're just like your father. Because when you attack the action, you invite change. But when you attack his core, you invite defensiveness and shame. Every man is trying to become something greater than what raised him. Even the best fathers had flaws. Even the strongest men have fears. And the more you recognize that struggle, the more you can support. Not by enabling him, but by believing in him. Speak life into the man he's trying to become, not fear into the man he's afraid of becoming. He may never tell you how much those words hurt. He may not explain the weight they carry, but that doesn't mean it doesn't break him. Men are taught to be silent about their pain, to push through, to perform, but even the strongest man can be undone by the wrong words from the right person. You have more power than you realize. Your words can either become a mirror that helps him see his growth, or a cage that traps him in his past. Be the mirror. Reflect the man he's becoming. Remind him that he is not doomed to repeat cycles, that he has the power to rise, to heal, to build a legacy that looks nothing like what he came from. Because when a man feels believed in, he transforms, not out of pressure, but out of purpose. When he feels that his past doesn't define his future in your eyes, he finds the strength to break generational chains, not just for himself, but for you, for your love, and for the life you're building together. You don't have to excuse his pain. You just have to stop weaponizing it. Let your love be a safe space. A space where he can fall short and still feel seen. a space where his past isn't thrown in his face, but where his future is held in your hands with care. That kind of love changes a man. It softens his edges. It opens his heart. It invites him to become better, not to avoid punishment, but to rise into the vision you believe in. Never underestimate the impact of your voice. You can use it to repeat old patterns or to help him break free from them. You can use it to punish him for things he didn't choose or to guide him toward the man he wants to be. One path leads to fear and resentment. The other leads to growth and connection. And the choice is always yours. So the next time you're tempted to say, "You're just like your father," stop, breathe, and choose to speak with intention. Not because he's perfect, but because your love is strong enough to guide him, not judge him, strong enough to challenge him without crushing him, strong enough to protect the sacred bond between you, even when it's tested by pain. That's a kind of love that builds empires, that heals lineages, that creates something so real, so grounded, so unbreakable that no past can threaten it. Only a wise heart can love that way. Only a woman who understands her power can protect something that precious. And when you become that kind of woman, you don't just change the man, you change the future. There are few things more damaging to a man's spirit than hearing the words, "You're not a real man." It's not just an insult, it's an attack on his very identity. A phrase like that doesn't challenge him, it crushes him. It doesn't correct his behavior, it questions his existence. And no matter how calm or confident he may appear on the outside, those words tear something apart on the inside that may never fully recover. Because every man, deep down, is walking a tightrope, balancing between strength and softness, pressure and peace, performance and presence. The world constantly tells him to be tough, to provide, to be unshakable. But inside, he often feels like he's not doing enough, like he's falling short of some invisible standard. And when the woman he loves most confirms that fear by saying he isn't a real man, it doesn't motivate him to be better. It convinces him that nothing he does will ever be good enough. He may not show you his pain. He may laugh it off or shut down. But the truth is, those words don't disappear. They stay. They echo. They replay in his head during the quiet moments when he questions his worth. And slowly, they start to change how he sees himself and how he sees you. A man needs space to grow, to fail, to learn, and he needs that space to be safe. Not perfect, not passive, but safe. A place where he can be strong without being hard, soft without being weak. A place where he can drop the armor the world demands he wear and just be human. And if he doesn't find that with you, he won't search for it elsewhere. He'll bury it, deep inside. And you'll start to lose him, not all at once, but piece by piece. Words matter. Especially from a woman whose opinion he values more than anyone else's. When you speak, your words either lift him into his potential or pull him into his doubt. They either ignite his purpose or deepen his shame. And telling him he's not a real man is one of the most destructive phrases you can ever use, not because it's true, but because it plays on his deepest insecurity. Masculinity isn't a performance. It's not defined by how much money he makes, how loud he speaks, or how emotionless he can be. Real masculinity is presence, it's commitment, it's effort, it's showing up day after day even when it's hard. And the men who are trying, who are learning, who are pushing against their own history just to be better, that effort deserves respect, not ridicule. You may feel justified in saying those words. Maybe he disappointed you. Maybe he made a mistake. Maybe he failed to meet an expectation. But there's a difference between calling out an action and condemning a person. You can hold him accountable without attacking who he is. You can express your hurt without destroying his foundation. Because if you truly want to see a man rise, speak to the strength you believe is still there, even if it's buried. Tell him you know he's capable. Tell him you believe in his growth. Tell him that the real man is already inside him, even if he's struggling to live it out. That kind of belief creates transformation. That kind of love moves mountains. And the irony is, the men who hear you're not a real man the most are often the ones trying the hardest. Because trying men are imperfect men. Men who make mistakes, stumble, fall, but keep showing up. The ones who give what they can, even when it feels like it's never enough. And those are the ones who most need to hear something different, something healing, something that reminds them they don't have to be flawless to be worthy of respect. Never forget the weight your voice carries. Your words can build or break, they can shame or shape. And a man who feels emotionally safe with you will give you a version of himself the world will never see. Not because he's weak, but because with you, he doesn't have to pretend. So when the temptation rises to speak from anger, to lash out with words that cut deep, ask yourself, Do I want to destroy or do I want to inspire? Do I want to win this moment or build something that lasts? Because what you say in a moment of pain may echo far longer than the moment that caused it. A man becomes what he feels around you. If he feels trusted, he becomes trustworthy. If he feels respected, he rises into leadership. If he feels encouraged, he becomes courageous. But if he feels small, unwanted, or emasculated, he either shuts down or walks away. Not because he doesn't love you, but because the place he called home no longer feels like home. You don't have to coddle a man to support him. You don't have to overlook wrong behavior to speak with grace. But the strength of a woman is in her ability to correct without crushing, to guide without humiliating, to love without emasculating. That's real power. And the woman who masters it holds more influence than she could ever imagine. Because a man can face anything outside if he knows he's not being torn down on the inside. Be that anchor. Be that voice. Be that reminder that he is still becoming, and that becoming is still worth fighting for. Real love doesn't just speak. It listens, protects, and understands the power of silence. There's a strength in knowing when not to speak, a wisdom in choosing peace over impulsive expression. And nowhere is that more powerful than in the moments when your emotions beg to be released, but your heart chooses to protect what you're building instead. Because love is not just about saying everything you feel. It's about preserving the sacred space between two people. It's about understanding that some things, once spoken, don't dissolve. They settle into the foundation and shape everything that comes after. A relationship is not a dumping ground for every passing frustration. It's a bond, fragile yet resilient when handled with care. And that care begins with restraint, with recognizing that not every emotion deserves a voice in the moment, that not every thought needs to become a sentence, that not every truth needs to be spoken just because it's true. Silence, when used with intention, is not suppression. It's protection. It's the kind of maturity that chooses long-term peace over short-term satisfaction, the kind of self-control that builds trust instead of testing it. When you truly love someone, you don't just share your heart. You guard theirs. You understand that words carry weight, that once something is said in frustration, even if it's forgiven, it's rarely forgotten. It lingers. It reshapes how someone feels in your presence. And over time, it erodes the safety that love needs to thrive. Emotional discipline is a gift few possess, but it's the cornerstone of every strong, lasting relationship. It's the quiet decision to think before you speak, to understand before you react, to reflect before you express. It's what separates connection from chaos. There's nothing admirable about pouring your pain into someone else just because you're hurting. That's not honesty. That's emotional recklessness. True intimacy isn't built through raw, unfiltered expression. It's built through conscious communication, through knowing that your voice is powerful and using it only when it serves healing, not harm. And yes, there will be times when the emotions rise so fast, so sharp, that silence feels impossible. But those are the exact moments when silence is most needed, not as avoidance, but as alignment, a moment to breathe, to reset, to return to your values. Because in those heated moments, your words are not just expressions, they're weapons. And the damage they cause doesn't always heal with an apology. Sometimes, love means walking away from the conversation for a moment to protect the connection for a lifetime. It means asking yourself not how do I win this, but how do I protect this? Because the strength of a relationship is not measured by how loudly you can argue, but by how intentionally you choose your battles, your tone, your timing. When you master your mouth, you master your impact. You become a force that heals instead of harms. You create an environment where your partner feels safe to be real, not afraid to make mistakes. And that safety is the root of vulnerability. It's what allows someone to take off the mask, to speak their fears, to admit their flaws, because they know they won't be punished for being human. If you want to build something unbreakable, you have to become someone unshakable. And that begins with how you handle your own emotions. The calm you create within yourself becomes the peace you extend to your relationship. The discipline you develop inside becomes the protection you offer to the one you love. Don't confuse silence with weakness. It takes far more strength to hold back a destructive word than to launch it in defense. It takes far more courage to pause and breathe than to lash out and regret. And every time you choose that higher road, you're not losing power, you're gaining respect. Respect from your partner, respect from yourself. Because the woman who can hold her fire, who can speak with grace even when she feels like exploding, is not just powerful, she's rare. She becomes the kind of partner every man longs for but few ever find. Not because she's passive, not because she accepts everything, but because she understands that real love doesn't thrive on rage. It thrives on responsibility. Speak to heal. Stay silent to protect. Express with intention, not impulse. That is how you preserve love. That is how you build trust. That is how you become unforgettable. And the beauty is, the more you master this within yourself, the more powerful your presence becomes. You stop needing to prove anything. You stop engaging in emotional warfare. You start moving with a calm strength that says, I know my worth, and I honor yours too. That kind of love doesn't fade. That kind of energy doesn't go unnoticed. It creates a gravitational pull that draws depth, commitment, and peace into your life. And the ones who experience that kind of love, they never forget where they found it. There is one final mistake that often hides beneath the surface, cloaked in love, yet quietly destructive. It's the act of exposing your partner's weaknesses to others, speaking about his flaws, his insecurities, or his failures to friends, family, or even strangers in passing conversation. It may seem harmless at first. Maybe it's venting. Maybe it's seeking advice. Maybe it's just needing someone to listen. But what you're really doing is taking what was meant to be sacred and making it public. And nothing kills intimacy faster than betrayal disguised as casual conversation.